This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 25.
Welcome to the show that focuses on helping real estate agents build a bulletproof business plan so that they can sell more properties in less time and live a more fulfilled life.
Are you a real estate agent with an entrepreneurial spirit who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you just can't seem to find the right plan to help you get there? Well, then you're definitely in the right place. Hey, I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. And to help you take immediate action to build a better real estate agent business, I've created a free jumpstart course for you over at freeagentgift.com. So get over there and get started. In this episode, I want to talk about an interesting subject where I'm going to discuss the difference between marketing and making a market. If you've listened to this podcast long enough, or if you've ever been taught by me in any forum, you'll hear me often refer to making a market. And people say, what are you talking about? Now, I guess I'm heavily influenced by a very short stint in my career, but I guess a highly impactful one. When I first graduated college back in the Stone Age, I went straight into a Wall Street type of environment working for investment banking. And that exposed me to the stock market. So I really understood the making of a market when it came to selling stocks. And so I'll get into the details on that in a second. But the first thing that I want to hit here, the first bullet point is, what is marketing? We keep throwing this word around, and it's actually kind of a squirrely definition. I mean, you'll go look on Wikipedia, and it starts off one way, and then the business dictionary kind of takes you in another way. And it's actually confusing, but I will go to Wikipedia for this case because I like the long definition here. So let me get it into this podcast. According to the American Marketing Association, so we might as well defer to them, it's the activity, set of institutions, and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large. I told you it was sort of a tongue twister, right? So really, it's this whole concept of getting your message out there to somebody who needs you. And it really doesn't stop just at lead generation. I think a lot of you in the real estate business believe marketing just gets you that lead, but it actually continues, especially in the digital age when it comes to conversion. You're constantly marketing. And even after the sale, if you're smart and you're building a business correctly, you're marketing to your past client community, meaning you're constantly exchanging that value with them. It goes on forever. So that's really the essence of what marketing is. But today's about point B. How do you make a market? And what do you mean? Well, let's just take the context of our business. And we've said this before. The definition of our business is that you have to have inventory. In other words, you have to have properties to sell. So let's make this, I guess, similar to looking at the market, the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, something like that, right? Where I bring my company public offering shares of stock, and I offer it through that vehicle of the marketplace. I list, same thing, right? I list my stock, my equity stock with one of these exchanges. And then there are these people called traders who actually begin to make a market for the stock. And then there's stockbrokers, another layer of market makers. And then there's analysts who are evaluating all this. So there's a lot going on in the stock market, right? A lot. Well, it's not really dissimilar in our world because the marketplace, our equivalent of the New York Stock Exchange, is the multiple listing service. Now, we have a whole bunch of small local MLSs, so we have all these micro markets, and you see the big push here with all of these this endeavor in the digital age to bring it into one massive platform, and for all intents and purposes, it's basically become that because with syndication marketing, the marketplace is now everywhere, okay? But how do you go out and get the inventory? That's one step. And then how do you put it in the marketplace? And then what do you do to make a market for it? See, that's the essence of this conversation that I'm always having with you. It's one thing to just go get it, throw it into the marketplace, get on your knees and look up to the sky and pray that somebody brings a buyer for you. And that's not making a market in a proactive way. You're reactively relying on the marketplace itself, which is fine because, believe it or not, the real estate market's pretty efficient. Only, though, if your strategy has been good enough to price it in the range. That's the next point here. If you go out and list a property and you just yes a seller to death and say, sure, I'll take it, or you try to beat your competitors by saying, oh, they're crazy, that's too low, let's just put it on at what you want it on. You know what you're doing. You're screwing up the marketplace because you're not telling the truth, or you're just undereducated on how to price something correctly. I get it. Now, a lot of you are intimidated by the sellers because, the sellers are always yelling and screaming about price, or at least we perceive them to be, because we're scared. So when anybody smells fear, they lean in and they say, look, I want it at this price. I don't care what else you're going to do. This is what I want to net. So see, price in our marketplace is often dictated by the whims and emotions of our sellers, because quite frankly, many times the seller has fallen in love with their property, or they've been relying on this equity to pay something or to be able to do something. And so they're delusional about what actual pricing really could be. Again, it's all emotionally driven. So let's just assume that we get around all that and you have indeed priced it correctly, at least inside the range. Well, then the MLS will be efficient. Now, the two types of MLSs, well, not really two types, but two types of marketing that we talk about is one is syndication. Once you've tried to begin to make a market for this piece of inventory or this listing, you've thrown it into our marketplace. And now, thanks to the digital world, if you've agreed to syndicate it and allow everybody to populate it on their websites, from the technology companies to competitors, off it goes. But it just sort of became a fly speck in the marketplace, right? How do I find it now? I mean, it's everywhere. So this is where I'm really pushing you to become a market maker in a very localized, individualized way. And I call it push marketing. I want you to push your listing. And I want you to try to market that listing. So using marketing techniques and all the great platforms that are out there to get traffic to it directly, or brokers become aware of it through your marketing. See, not everybody has to go to MLS and hope that it works. Other agents are driving around. They see signs. They're looking. They're proactive themselves. They're previewing things at open houses. Hello. One of the greatest places to make a market is doing an open house. You take your inventory, you get it ready, you market it, let people know that message that there's an exchange of value that can take place here. If you come by Saturday, 10:30 to 12, we'll be here opening up our listing to anybody who wants to come. That's the act of trying to make the market come to you. Right? That's what it is. And so that's marketing. But when you're there, it's the ability to play matchmaker. So that's what I really want you to think about is once it's in the right price range and you're doing proactive marketing, meaning you're trying to bring people to you, that's when you finally have the chance to make a market as the middleman or the middle person or the middle lady. Not sure how to say that, lady. Sorry. The middle woman. Okay. How about that? But you're in the middle. Now, whether there's another agent or not is not relevant at the moment because you're in the middle of action. You've got your seller, their buyer, a buyer. You're in the middle. So it's up to you to be able to bring forth the evidence to make that market for your seller. In other words, the buyer comes in kicking the tires, but they're serious and they're a little bit iffy about the price. You should be ready. Say, look, that's great news for you. As a great market maker, I'm ready. I have the analysis here and my seller's giving me the permission to show you why we've priced it in this range. And this is why we believe we belong there. Go right at it. There's all this nonsense that this is like some kind of weird game of pricing it right bingo, that we sort of guess the price just to win the listing. And then somebody comes in and we're all dancing on the head of a pin and nobody will come right at it. Say, look, here's the trading range. What do you think? Because that's the next point. The feedback from buyers and buyers' agents will be real. I mean, think about it. If you're taking a buyer out, typically you're taking them out to see 3, 4, 5 properties, maybe even more, maybe less, whatever it is. But they've been out there looking online and offline. They are the other side of the marketplace. So they have opinions, and it's their opinion that matters a lot. Sure, some of it will be harsh feedback. Yeah, your house is no good for this reason, and the seller gets all worked up. But that's our job in the middle to say, all right, calm down. I'm a market maker here. I don't take that stuff personally. That's just real feedback. You can't do something about this that they said, but you could recondition it like they're suggesting. And I told you that from the beginning. So it's time to paint your house. It's time to do your landscaping. See, that's good feedback from the marketplace, which in you're making the market so that adjustments can be made based on facts, not your opinion. That's really the essence of why I keep pounding on this with all of you. Understand that that's how you make a market, and you can't shy away from that. You have to lean in when the dog bites. Lean in when the dog bites. Lean in when the dog bites. Meaning what? When you're afraid and your seller gets really, frustrated or angry with you, they're just frustrated with the process. So the more you lean into that moment, say, look, I understand you're frustrated, but this is the real feedback from these buyers. And let's just reconnect you to why you're selling it to begin with. Didn't you want to move so you could be closer to your grandchildren? Isn't that what you told me? See, these are all market-making skills. Really think about that. I know you're listening to me saying, oh my gosh, I have to be a psychologist. Yes, you do. That's what good market makers are. And they also can intuit these things and predict these things and sense them. They know when something's going right. They know when something's going wrong, and they don't run away from either of those things. They lean in to guide, not control. Good market makers lift people up and empower them through this feedback and these adjustments, empower them to make these decisions. And quite frankly, that's a breaking point. A good market maker who's doing it correctly and not forcing anybody or intimidating anybody to do anything, especially when it comes to price adjustments, rather educating that leads to an empowered decision, you'll find out whether somebody's really serious about selling or not as a market maker in that moment in time. And of course, if somebody's wasting your time, don't waste your time. It's not a viable opportunity as a market maker. Your job is to get in the middle of a buyer and a seller as often as possible where there are motivated parties that can lead to a transaction, okay? And the final point here is when you're making a market and you're giving that feedback and suggesting adjustments, especially downwards movement on price, the biggest, number one rejection or objection you get is, I don't want to give it away. Oh my gosh, if I hear it one more time, really, you can't give it away. You want to know how I know that? Well, back a couple years ago, my brother and I were fortunate enough to do a TV show called 60 Seconds to Sell, and we tried to give it away. Huh? Yeah, we tried to give it away because we were using an auction technique during the recession where we couldn't really figure out the right price range. So we said, gee, everything's falling so fast. Why don't we use an auction-like technique? Let's cut the price in half. Let's let the buyers come in, bid against each other until we have a floor, introduce the seller back into the conversation, and close the gap. And guess what? It worked over and over and over. And never once were we able to give the property away. Why? The marketplace with good market making always allowed us to find what something was truly worth in a very quick fashion. Okay? So let's go back and cover these points again. There is a difference between marketing and making a market. Sure, they're intertwined, but marketing is really about that expression to the public about what's available for an exchange of value, and it continues on throughout the life cycle of a contact. Right? All the way from the lead stage to past client, marketing is always out there expressing or is the delivery platform for your message upon multimedia, meaning direct mail, digital, etc. But how do you make a market for a listing? Well, you get in there and you use marketing to make people aware that they should come to this thing and see it with you so that you create almost like a trading pit, like the Chicago Commodities Pit or the New York Stock Exchange floor, where there's a lot of yelling and screaming and action. Don't you just love it? Can't you just feel it? That's making a market for something. Your number one way to get in front of people is an open house on a hotly priced listing. They're coming, and you get a chance to be right in the pit. Get in there. Right? Now, that'll only happen if you start off by pricing something and bringing it into the marketplace in the right range. If you bring something into a marketplace, the stock market or the MLS, and the price is wrong, guess what you hear? Crickets. While everybody else is making a market for their product, you're drowning. Don't price it incorrectly. Yes, people, learn how to become a better market maker first by learning how to correctly price your inventory, your listings. Now, once that's all correct and you're in that hot spot, you're going to get feedback. And a lot of it's going to be harsh. And people are going to say downright mean things about your property. Lean in when that dog bites. Embrace it. Tell your seller exactly what went down. Use feedback systems that show them the very written comments from buyers and their buyer agents, and then suggest and empower the seller to make an adjustment. And the last point is remind them there's no such thing as giving a house away. I know it feels painful to come down on the price or price it right to begin with, but you can't give it away. It's impossible. Watch an auction anytime. As they lower the price, it gets bid up because there's no way to give it away. Everything has a value. All right. So there we go. The summary, well, I'll be okay. To summarize the key point, learn how to become an effective market maker. Using marketing, sure, but market maker, that's the key point. Now, remember, you can take immediate action and get started in the right direction with our free video course over at freeagentgift.com. If you like what you learned here, then we'd really appreciate it if you would share these insights with other entrepreneurial real estate agents just like you so that they can find their way right here to join us. Don't forget to subscribe or follow on whichever platform you're listening. And of course, a positive review is always appreciated. Thank you. We also broadcast our live sales training on Facebook, on our Facebook TRC page, the Realty Classroom page, every Friday at 1 p.m. EDT, Eastern Daylight Time. So remember to like that page so you won't miss any notifications. Hey, thanks for listening, and I look forward to helping you in the next episode.
You've been listening to The Realty Classroom with Danny Griffin. Join us next time to continue learning how to build a smarter real estate agent business plan that helps you live a more fulfilled life.